Okay, part 2 of the walk cycle tutorial. So what we're going to do now is focus on the animating the leg so that the leg lines up with everything else. So we can clean up some of the layers we don't need. And this is what it looks like without the legs fixed. We'll be moving the body up and down, we'll be moving the feet, and the legs are a bit out of joint. So let's go in and start with the right leg, and before we do that we'll switch off the back ones. We don't need to worry about the arms for now. Get rid of them. Now we can focus on the business. So the leg is going to be joined first physically, because we need to correct the vertical movement, and because we're doing everything at 100% magnification and we're working with by using the shift tool and the arrow keys, we can move things in fairly big blocks. So let's just correct the joint problem first. That was already right. So the recall, I'll just move down 1. The high point, I think we move up 2 or 3. And that should be fairly good. So that looks good. There might be a bit of a pop. Here. Pop is actually on the contact position. I don't like to have to change this, but I think it's the easiest way. So let's do that, see what happens. It's only going to affect the middle contact pose. It's alright, I'll let it slide. So now we begin skewing the legs. Try not to overdo this, we're just doing enough to make the base of the foot contact fairly believably with the base of the leg to contact fairly believably with the foot. And we don't want to do it too much, because the more we skew this, the more we'll break this line here, this line where the leg contacts the lower body, and if we mess that up, things will look weird. That's why I'm not going to worry too much about the pop I was seeing on the leg earlier, because it's going to be changed by this process, and then we may have to tweak it later on. This kind of movement here, where we're just shortening the vertical axis, is not going to change that line, whereas rotating it like this will. So I've no problem with crushing it up, but these kind of movements are dangerous, so we have to be very careful about using them too much. But again, as you can see here, nothing strange is happening, apart from the leg losing volume, and that we will fix soon. I'm going to move this back up a little bit. And here we're seeing a gap opening between the base of this leg here. I could fix that by, again, skewing the leg, but see what happens. We start breaking this and making the cartilage look very flat. So we fix that. And we won't worry about this gap in this stage. This will be fixed internally inside this clip itself. So that's already looking fairly good. There's one thing catching my eye. And that's here, where this seems to be slicing. So let's move. And again, there's a lot of repairs can be done internally in this clip, but this point here needs to be fairly consistent. We could fix this, of course, by just dragging the foot up, but that doesn't look as nice to me. So now we've got the motion tweening is done pretty much as it can do to fix this problem. This now seems to be moving okay. I don't see anything in there that's really catching my eye in a bad way. And of course the colors of these models are really making it quite unforgiving. If we were doing a real character, chances are he'd be one continuous color and we might not see as much of these little errors and pops. So this is a good way to practice this. Okay, so now we're going to go inside. This is going to be a comp. We're going to do some work inside here. So it's going to have this leg comp is going to have a keyframe that'll match all the external keyframes, of course. So we copy these frames, go inside the leg comp, and paste them. And now we can make keyframes internally in here that will match that. And we're going to be shape tweening. This is going to be fun. So we go back outside. Now the trick is to, something I didn't do when I started, I should have set this as a graphic to play one, or well, set to loop. Now all these frames need to match. So for example, this is frame 3, this needs to be frame 3. This is on frame 9, this has to be frame 9. And it has to be set to either play once or loop. In this case it doesn't really matter which, so I'm not going to worry about looping. And generally I prefer play once, but and there's a quicker way to do this, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So this is frame 21, and then we're going back to frame 25. So with that done, we can start having some fun. So we're going to go to the recoil pose. Now here's where I'm using one of the TuneMonkey extension plugins from tunemonkey.com. It's called Frame Edit, and this allows you to tunnel directly, and it's installed. You have to have Flash MX 2004 or higher for this. And here it is. I've assigned the hotkey to the hyphen key, which is to the right of the back and forward arrows, and to the left of the shift key. The nice thing about this is I can go forward and back through the timeline, and then when I want to tunnel directly into that clip, I hit the hyphen key, or the forward slash key, and then I'm into the frame, the relative frame. So again, if I'm on the external clip, I go to frame 15, I select this clip, I click on frame edit, and then I'm into frame 15. If I don't use this, then this happens. I'm bumped back to frame 1 every time, and then I have to count my way forward by hand. That's very tedious. So thankfully, people who don't work for Macromedia or Adobe have more concern for the lives of animators than the people who do. So that's what we do. So we go to frame 3 and frame edit in. If you don't have frame edit in, then you're going to have to, if you're using Flash MX or you don't have it, then you're just going to have to do this, shunting to the right frame by hand, which I've done for many years. So I would suggest you get the extension if you can. So we position the leg as best we can, and we can again use the forward and back keys to make sure it's not breaking, because this is shape tweening, and shape tweening can, as you know, go crazy sometimes. So in this case, solid, it's good, and let's push that out a little bit more. And now we're going to go into the high point and straighten this. At some point I would expect, yes, here we go, hooray. So we have our usual, which we're all more than familiar with, the shape hints go crazy. And this is inevitable, it's going to happen at some point. Up to now, the geometry of this has been fairly stable. This is where we get into a part of the program that a lot of people don't use for some reason, shape hints. And shape hints can be, make sure you have snap to objects on for this. Modify, shape, add shape hint, or Control, Shift and H. And it allows us to place these points at different areas and see if they help or hinder the process. Some of them make it better and some of them actually make it worse, and it just depends where you put them. So play around a little bit. That was horrible. So we just play around a little bit, and sometimes you can get it with just one hint. So the best of those 4 was this one. Now I warn you that you should really back up your file before you do this. I think they've really improved the stability of this a lot, and in version 8 and hopefully the new one. But if you use MX or 2004 or any other version for that matter, please back up your FLA file before you do this. It will crash sporadically. It doesn't mean you shouldn't use it, it just means you should be very careful. So back up your work, you don't want to lose a lot of the effort you put into it. So here we go, we've fixed that. At least the first section, it'll still break on the second. Now the beauty of this is normally you can copy the A, B, C, whatever sequence you put the hints in. If you copy that onto the next key, it should work. 9 times out of 10 it will. So I'm just going to make 4 hints, drop them in. And there we go. So now we go back to our walk, and that should look pretty good. Now we're going back into the next contact pose. I'm going to change this one too, even though it's a contact pose. I think it could use a little bit more of a bend on it. So that's this is kind of confusing because we are seeing the hints from the other keyframe. So we're going to have to move them, unfortunately. So I'm going to switch snap off so I can get this. I don't want to move it a lot. Just a little bit. I'm not going to try bending the legs or do anything too intricate. And there we go. So that'll give us a more satisfying compression on that. Now here we have something tricky. Again, I'm going to change slightly the position of the foot just to drag it a little bit more. It's still lifting off the ground. I just want to drag it a little bit. This is the point where we can begin to put little touches and whatnot. So this leg should be really bent as much as the program will allow. some reason the shape hints don't mind when I bend it this way, they only mind when I bend it the other way. So this is so far great. And we also want this leg to be bent pretty much like the this one. So in this case, hold on the Alt key, drag the symbol, and we've copied that state onto this one. Let's see what that does. So in this case, we can fix the brake on the leg, and well, it won't hurt to change the angle slightly so that it doesn't look like a static symbol. And there we go. There's a slight catch you're noticing in the playback. It's because there's a defect in Flash for some strange reason, where even if I remove this frame here, it won't cycle smoothly. That has to be done on an external timeline, which is here, which I've set to, of course we're now seeing, even this will actually, as you can see, not play quite right. So let's export that. Try to ignore the left leg, look at the right leg, and you'll see it's totally smooth. There's still some glitches happening on where the leg contacts the ankle, and we can also fix these internally in the program. So let's go in here. So for example, on this frame, you can just move that up. Maybe pull it down just a little bit. Certainly on this one, it's not quite matching. Now we could either change the leg or change the foot in this case. And since the foot's off the ground, and we want to have a life, it might be better to do that. Doesn't seem to affect the animation too badly. Now there's obviously arcing madness going on here, and this is where the passing position, which we would normally do in a traditional scene, would come in. This is where you could help to determine the arcs of the foot by either dragging it or lifting it higher. So we do definitely, the program's telling us something here. When we see this kind of thing happening, it's telling us that either we need to change the position of the foot or the position of the leg, and it just comes down to the arc. So one way of seeing what the ideal path should be will be to just switch on the foot level by itself and go to edit multiple frames. There we go, and go onion all. It might be a bit confusing, but we can see. So as you can see, the frames of the walk are arcing smoothly, and then we get a bump right where this foot is. It's somewhere between the contact, the recoil, and the high point. Things are becoming flat. Now we could have a foot drag like this, or we could try to make it a continuous smooth cycle. So it might be actually acceptable in this case to drag the path a little bit. It just means that we cannot have a straight line, which is what it's currently doing. If we were to, for example, make a keyframe here, you can see when we keyframe these frames what's happening. That's hideous. So we have to get rid of that, and the only way to get rid of that is by putting in a keyframe, and that keyframe is going to be the traditional passing position. So let's switch off edit multiple frames, go to where the passing position should be. Probably safest will be somewhere either in the middle or just before it, and we'll do 2 of them. Actually, we don't even need to do 1 for the entire body. Just do as little as we need to get away with it. 1 for the foot. And switch off. Again, this can get quite confusing, so just switch off the left. We're just going to work on the right side right now. Decided to drag it down, so let's just make we will allow this leg, which is arcing, to determine the position, and hopefully that should correct the worst of it. So let's have a look. It's a lot better. So I'm going to let that go, and let's do the same thing. Clear that one. That was a mistake. So we will repeat that process on the other side for the left foot when the time comes. So now we also have noticing for some reason, as a result of all the skewing, this line has become very flattened out. So let's just round that, make it look a bit more natural. And there we go. So we repeat the same process for the blue leg.